In the early 19th century, in the vibrant city of Kingston, Jamaica, a remarkable woman was born. Her name was Mary Seacole. She came into the world in 1805, at a time when the British Empire stretched across continents, and opportunities for women, especially women of mixed heritage, were extremely limited. Mary Seacole was not an ordinary woman. From a very young age, she showed curiosity, courage, and a deep sense of compassion. Her mother was a healer, a woman who used traditional Caribbean and African remedies to treat the sick. This early exposure shaped Mary's future. She learned how to care for people, how to treat illnesses, and most importantly, how to remain calm in times of crisis. As she grew older, Mary traveled widely. She visited places such as England, the Bahamas, and Central America. These journeys were not just for exploration. They were her classrooms. She observed diseases, learned treatments, and gained real-world experience that no formal education could offer her at the time. In Central America, Mary faced one of the deadliest diseases of that era, cholera. While others fled in fear, Mary stepped forward. She treated patients, experimented with remedies, and risked her own life to save others. This was not just bravery, it was dedication beyond measure. By the time the Crimean War began in 1853, Mary Seacole was already an experienced nurse and healer. The war, fought between Britain and its allies against Russia, was brutal. Thousands of soldiers were suffering, not just from wounds, but from disease, poor conditions, and lack of proper medical care. Mary knew she had to help. She traveled to London with one goal in mind: to join the official group of nurses being sent to Crimea. She applied to the War Office. She applied to the nursing teams. She even tried to join the group led by Florence Nightingale. But she was rejected, again and again. The reasons were never clearly stated, but many historians believe that her race and background played a role. For many, this would have been the end of the journey, but not for Mary Seacole. She refused to give up. Instead of waiting for permission, she took matters into her own hands. She funded her own journey to Crimea. She traveled across dangerous routes, determined to reach the war zone. When she arrived near the battlefield, she did something extraordinary. She built her own establishment, known as the British Hotel. But this was no ordinary hotel. It was a place where soldiers could find food, rest, and medical care. Mary Seacole did not stay behind walls. She often went directly onto the battlefield. While bullets flew and chaos surrounded her, she carried supplies, treated the wounded, and comforted dying soldiers. Imagine the courage it takes to walk into a battlefield, not with a weapon, but with bandages and medicine. The soldiers adored her. They called her Mother Seacole. To them, she was not just a nurse. She was hope in human form. She treated wounds, infections, fevers, and trauma. She used both traditional remedies and practical experience. She worked tirelessly, often risking her own life. Despite her incredible efforts, Mary faced financial difficulties. Running the British Hotel during wartime was expensive, and after the war ended in 1856, she returned to England nearly bankrupt. However, the soldiers she had helped did not forget her. They organized fundraising events to support her. Newspapers wrote about her bravery. Slowly, her story began to gain recognition. In 1857, Mary Seacole published her autobiography, titled Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Seacole in Many Lands. It became one of the first autobiographies written by a Black woman in Britain. Through this book, she told her story in her own words, sharing her experiences, struggles, and triumphs.
For many years after her death in 1881, her story faded from public memory. History at times can be selective. Some heroes are remembered, while others are overlooked. But Mary Seacole's story does not end there. Even after her return to England, her presence continued to leave a mark on those who had witnessed her courage firsthand. Soldiers who had once stood on the edge of death spoke of her kindness. They remembered her not just as a nurse, but as someone who brought warmth, humanity, and dignity into the horrors of war. At a time when society often placed limits on women, and even harsher limits on women of color, Mary Seacole quietly broke barriers. She did not march with armies, yet she stood among them. She did not carry weapons, yet she fought a different kind of battle. A battle against suffering, disease, and despair. Her work in Crimea showed the world that compassion itself could be a powerful force. As years passed, the world began to change. Slowly, conversations about equality, recognition, and justice started to grow. And in those conversations, the name Mary Seacole began to rise once more. Schools began to teach her story. Historians began to highlight her achievements. Communities began to honor her memory. In London, a statue now stands in her honor, near St. Thomas Hospital. It is not just a statue of a woman, it is a symbol of resilience, a symbol of courage, a symbol of a voice that refused to be silenced. When people stand before that statue today, they are reminded of a powerful truth, that history is not only written by those in power, but also by those who dare to act. Mary Seacole dared to act. She dared to travel when it was dangerous. She dared to serve when she was rejected. She dared to care when others turned away. And in doing so, she created a legacy that continues to inspire people across the world.